Hmm. Yeah, and I told, because Mallory didn't know whether she should come up here or not. I said, you'll call her up. Oh, yeah, yeah. She'll come up. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's an animal. It's the kitty. Long as it's not a snake. Fond of snakes either, David. You ready? Okay. Good morning, everyone. Get everybody in here and seated and comfortable. Mhm. Um, Good morning. Welcome, everyone. We're so glad you're here. So please take your seats and silence your phones. We're having the announcements first before the service starts. So if you want to submit an announcement to be read, just write it on a slip of paper now. And there's a basket in the back, or we'll bring it up here. Um, Raise your hand if you have a written announcement to read, to collect. If you're on Zoom, put your announcement in the chat box at this time. There are always announcements on the back of your printed order of service, and we try not to repeat those verbally. The same announcements are in the email that go out every Sunday morning, and more that don't fit on the printed sheet. Oh, announcement. We got potluck cleanup workers are needed today. Uh, Use the compost bin for veggie, bread, no cheese or meat items. Uh, Scrape your plates before bringing to the kitchen, please. That's today. And also, please sign cards for compassion after the service that they're in the commons.
Uh, This announcement is up. I hope someone turned the oven on this morning because it was on this morning. And the people that we've asked that we think might have turned it on did not turn it on. So we do not know how long the oven has been turned on. Please make sure the oven is turned, both ovens are turned off upon leaving this house. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. So if you are a newcomer this morning, we'd like to extend a special welcome to you. We're so glad that you are here. Um, if you'd like to know more about what's going on at the fellowship 7 days a week, please give us your email address. And if you are here at the fellowship, you can fill out the blue welcome card. Leave it on your chair or give it to a greeter. If you're online, go to the link in the chat to fill out our welcome card. Current members can use the welcome card to update their information too. We hope that you'll stay here for coffee and conversation after the service so we can get to know each other, or stay online and chat on Zoom. Since we are here in a time of ministry and covenant, we are asking that we hold all applause until the end of the service. We can thank everyone for their contributions at the end. All right, so it's Social Action Sunday. So today for Social Action Sunday, I would like to invite Beverly Schaffstahl to tell us about our September recipient, Free Again Wildlife Rehabilitation. Welcome, Beverly. Oh, I got you. I think it's, there we go. Hey, Bev, you want me to?
Well, I'll talk for a minute and then we'll see how it goes. Okay. So thank you again for inviting us, and I'm glad to share what we do with you and why we do it. We are Free Again Wildlife Rehab, and we have been doing this for well over 30 years. I think it's 36 now that we have been doing this. The wildlife in this area obviously is under stresses by additional development. And the unfortunate part is these animals will adapt around us, but it seems that many people don't adapt to the animals, even though they were there first in many cases. These are native animals that we take in, everything from, we have a federal permit so that we can do birds, primarily the large birds of prey. And then the state permit, we do mammals. Generally speaking, it's the everyday mammal that people will run across in their own, many times in their backyard. For example, the percentage of squirrels we get are usually from urban areas. Nobody finds a random squirrel out in the middle of nowhere. It's their own backyard that they're finding them. So we do roughly about anywhere from 400 to 800 animals a year. Now, that's not all released, of course. Many times by the time they get to us, they're not salvageable. But at least then we can give them a humane ending. They're not laying out there in the ditch for days, for example. We do our best with what we can. Now, most of the mammals that we do are orphans, babies that we raise and release back to the wild. And the majority of the birds of prey are injuries by impact with people. Usually, the majority of those are vehicle collisions, hit by cars. Occasionally, there's like somebody wrapped up in a barbed wire fence or something like that. But the majority of them are that we find, again, are vehicle collisions. Again, people driving down the road are going to see them on the edge of the road. If something happens to them deep in the woods, that's something that most people, that just happens, and nature does what it does in those cases. But like I said, we do a large number of animals a year. We do take volunteers, of course. There's no way Jim and I could do this by ourselves, even though some days we're still pulling our hair out. It is something that we have dedicated our lives to at this point. I started off as a vet tech and just kind of fell into this, slid into it, and it has now become what we do for a life's passion. The animals that we do release back into the wild, people have wondered if they survive. We don't have scientific proof, but we have anecdotal stories about people where they didn't have any owls in their area. We release a couple owls, and sure enough, 2-3 years down the road, they're still seeing those owls in the area. So we have anecdotal proof that it does work, that they can survive. Obviously, the idea is that we, especially with the orphans, that we make sure that they are viable members of, and that is the goal, to make them viable members of the wild community. We want them to be able to integrate. If that means, unfortunately, 2 years down the line, that baby deer gets hunted, that we put them back into the population, and that's what happens. I mean, that's not something we control. Our goal is just to get them back into their natural environment to live out their life, even if it's short. There is an adage among rehabbers that a day in the wild is still better than a life in a cage. An owl that's got a wing tore off, for example, doesn't want to just sit in a cage. Even the educational birds that we do keep a few educational animals that cannot be released back to the wild, and we've got a couple of them. One of them is not being overly cooperative, but we'll see what we can do. And we We do use them for education. They at least are mobile. You know, they have some access to a normal environment to be able to fly and move around a cage. So they are not totally crippled. If they are, we don't deal with those. We let we help them into the next life at that point. I was gonna say, you're gonna not. He's trying to get a little possum out to show us real quick. So the animals that we have today, the little guys, the orphans are late babies. It's September and we're still getting babies in. I got up early to feed babies before we came. It took me 2 hours to syringe feed 15 baby squirrels, 4 baby possums, and these 2 baby coons. So we are still getting babies in even this late in the season, which especially with the squirrels, it's normal, but with the raccoons, that's really late babies. That's proof to me that something in the environment climate wise is changing when we're getting baby coons in August. I think he's going to need my help here. All right. This is one of my baby possums. We have 4 of them this size. We have a whole bunch of possums almost ready to be released. That is my one little plug. If anybody has property, we're always looking for new release sites. That's my only plug here that I'm going to put in. We try not to overdo any site. You know, there is something called what's the word I want? Carrying capacity. And so we might drop a couple of coons in an area, but I'm not going to put 10 coons in an area. The possums, we don't worry as much about it. They're nomadic. They go where they want to go. So yeah, this little guy is, and possums are very unique little animals. And in the children's thing, I'm going to go through that, explain to them why these guys, it's not just because they have the pouch. There's so many different things about these guys that we'll talk about with the kids. But yeah, people think they're so scary. They are some of the most docile animals we have, even in a threatened position. They are not dangerous. That's one of the things we try to get people to understand is these wild animals are not dangerous unless we corner them, we put them in a situation. They're not going to like jump out and attack us from nowhere. In fact, if you take a kid on a hike, you'll probably never see a wild animal. The noise of chatter will keep the animals well hidden. They don't really want to deal with it. This is where I'm going to talk my voice will be enough. This is the late baby coon that we have. Well, we've got 2 of them. Most of our coons are almost adult size, ready to be released. Why these are coming in this late, we don't know. But raccoons there are more in urban settings than there are woods anymore. And because life is easier, you've got these traveled things called drainage that they follow, and it's like subway to them. I mean, they just move from area to area. We put out food for them knowingly or unknowingly. You put out food for that stray cat, you're probably gonna have a raccoon in your yard. People tell me that they've never had raccoons in their yard. You put up a trail cam. You don't know what kind of party goes on in your yard at night that you don't know about. And again, we'll get these out and show the kids a little more. But yeah, these guys are I can still handle them. I can still bottle feed them. But once they are self-feeding, we only handle them roughly, like picking them up to move them to a clean cage or grabbing them to vaccinate them. They are not loved on. They are not kissed on. We want them to go out and be part of the wild community. All right, we're going to try to get a couple birds out real quick and show you. These, the smaller one, it was not very cooperative this morning, so I don't know how she's going to do. But like I said, we're always looking for more release sites. Well, no, I'm just going to pull her out. true falcon, okay, you know, people think, she's got a feather on her eyeball. Uh, People think falcons, they think peregrines, which they are, those are falcons, but this is its small cousin, the American kestrel. They're very common around here. Most people don't realize they're falcons. Sometimes people don't even realize they have a hawk in their backyard because it's so small. These guys can hover almost like a hummingbird does. You might see them over the median on an interstate, just hovering as they're hunting. They're one of the few birds that can do that. They're one of the few hawks you can tell male and female apart by color. Most of the time, there's not a color difference on hawks, but the females have these brown and black wings, and the males have the steel gray, blue-gray wing instead. So, and they're very vocal. Once you learn what their sound is, you can hear them all over. You know, you can pick them out in a neighborhood because they're very, very vocal. They will raise anywhere up to 5 babies in a clutch, and so their primary diet is very small rodents, mice, voles. So they're great for the neighborhood. If you've got them, you know, they're doing no harm. In fact, in the summertime when there's an abundance of, let's say, grasshoppers, they even eat large insects like that. So they're great for the garden. They're great to keep the mice out of your house. How about rabbits? No, this one would never take a rabbit. It's way too small for a rabbit. Now, bigger hawks, on the other hand, yes. Pete, is this a baby? No, this is not a baby. This is a full-grown kestrel. That's as big as they get. That's an adult. All right, the next one is Jim's baby, so he's going to get her out. He's looking for his bigger gloves. He's looking for the bigger gloves. We're not going to deal with this one with small gloves. This is an animal, a bird that is unusual. It's kind of rare in Southern Illinois. It's not rare across the country. They are very, very common in certain areas, but it is common, slightly rare in our area. They're not like endangered rare, but it is not a bird we see all the time here. This is a true barn owl. Just about every owl there is around here has come into our place with people calling them barn owls, but this is a true barn owl. And they call them, the books sometimes refer to them as the common barn owl, but again, here they are not common. Barn owls can be found all over the world. They are not just an American bird. They are, the reason we call them barn owls is now that there's human structures, they would prefer to nest in a human structure than make their own nests. They would be a cavity nester, surely before, you know, man hit this country and started making barns. They were nesting in holes in trees. However, they can have up to 7 eggs at a time. And it's a little hard to raise 7 babies in a hollow tree. But if you got a hay mow to raise them in, or an old grain bin, then it's no problem. These guys are killing machines when it comes to mice. Absolutely killing machines. Biologists have found nests of barn owls with dead mice just littering the floor because they kept bringing more mice home for the babies than they could even eat. Owls do something different than other birds. They lay an egg and start to incubate right away and then continue to lay eggs. So when you have 7 eggs to a nest, you've got 14 days difference between the first one and the last one because they do it every other day. So people have found baby owls and said they don't belong to that nest. Well, yeah, they do. They're just one of the stair steps in there because a 2-week difference between the first hatch and the last is incredible. The amount of growth you get in 2 weeks on a baby owl. So yes, that's why they prefer human structures. But they are also grassland hunters. They don't like the really heavy, you know, we think that Illinois was a prairie at one time, but that prairie grass was, you know, 12 feet tall. That wasn't the kind of thing, grassland that this bird can hunt on. It's not a woodland. So it does well around here because we have made meadows. So it can hunt meadows, but we are not primarily a good habitat for a lot of barn owls. There's only so many that our area, farm area, because again, cornfields are really green deserts when it comes to hunting things. So even though we have a lot of farmland, it's got to be meadow-like for these guys to hunt. But again, living around a homestead would be perfect for them. Because of course, if you have a barn, you either have livestock, and if you have livestock, what do you feed them? Grain. If you have grain, you have mice. If you're a grain farmer, well, then, you know, you eliminated the livestock part of it. You just got grain and now you have mice. So if these guys are just these hunting fools like that, it would be wonderful to have them in your neighborhood. They're going to keep every mouse down, especially if they have 7 kids that they're feeding as well. So this particular bird is probably better known in some circles as the early American ghost story, because they don't have a sweet, nice owl noise. They have a blood curdling scream. And so now she looks very golden brown from the top, but if you were only seeing her from the underside, if you walked into your very primitive barn 200 years ago with maybe what, a candle, and you saw this white apparition flying over your head with a blood curdling scream, you might think the banshees have just been let loose on you. So these birds have a lot to do with superstition and folklore. And then, of course, the young people know of all the movies lately that where a barn owl was instrumental. Harry Potter is one. So these guys are an incredible bird. Well, those are our special guests today, and I just hope that it's given you a little overview of some of the things that we do. Education, of course, is a big part of what we do, because if we don't get people to understand we have to live with these animals, that they're part of our world, well, it'll be a pretty dismal, bleak world if we eliminate the natural world around us. And granted, we can't have 40 coons in our backyard, but you know, it wouldn't hurt to have a possum roam through once in a while, or an owl nesting in our neighborhood. So if we could just get people to understand that we are just one part of this world, and these animals are also another part of it, and they enrich our lives whether we know it or not most of the time. So thank you for your time today. I hope that we didn't go over time here.
Thank you very much, Beverly. That was quite interesting. They're beautiful. I would like to welcome everyone to the Carbondale Unitarian Fellowship, located on the unceded traditional lands of the first people of present-day Southern Illinois, the Miami, Osage, Kaskaskia, and Quapaw. The fellowship is a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association, sharing the good news of Unitarian Universalism with folks throughout the region. Our good news is a message of love, freedom, reason, respect, and justice as the basis for religious community. I'm Debbie Blomer. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a member of the Sunday services team, the choir, and the reproductive justice group. And this morning, I'm one of your Sunday service facilitators.
And I'm Alex, and my pronouns are he, him. I'm on the board of trustees here at CUF, and I'm also on the LGBTQIA plus welcoming congregations, and I'm your other facilitator today.
We are a congregation of open minds and hearts, all ages, all colors, all genders, all abilities, all kinds of wealth, all kinds of love. Now I'd like to invite those of us who are online to select gallery view so we can wave at each other, connecting our congregation over space. Currently, CUF is lay-led, with the Sunday services team planning our services using the rich spirit and many talents of our congregation's member and friends. In addition to members, services may include guest speakers and ministers. This year, we will also join with our friends at the Church of the Good Shepherd for some special Sunday services. Join us on Sunday morning or at our Wednesday evening Vespers on Zoom as we continue our search for a minister. Now, let's center ourselves with the music of the prelude.
When it rains, it pours, but you didn't even notice. It ain't raining anymore. It's hard to breathe when all you know is the struggle of staying above the rising water line. Well, the sky has finally opened. The rain and wind stop blowing, but you're stuck out in the same old storm again. You hold tight to your umbrella. Well, darling, I'm just trying to tell you that there's always been a rainbow hanging over your head. If you could see what I see, you'd be blinded by the colors, yellow, red, orange, and green, and at least a million others. So tie up the boat, take off your coat, and take a look around. 'Cause the sky is finally opened. The rain and wind stop blowing, but you're stuck out in the same old storm again. You hold tight to your umbrella. Well, darling, I'm just trying to tell you that there's always been a rainbow hanging over your head. Oh, tie up the boat, take off your coat, and take a look around. Everything is all right now, 'cause the sky is finally opened. The rain and wind stopped blowing, but you're stuck out in the same old storm again. Let go of your umbrella, 'cause darling, I'm just trying to tell you that there's always been a rainbow hanging over your head. That there's always been a rainbow hanging over your head. It'll all be all right.
Wow, that was amazing. Thank you, TK. So, our chalice lighting reading is One Love by Reverend Hope Johnson. We are one, a diverse group of proudly kindred spirits. We choose to journey together, taking risks, opening up, making mistakes, paying attention, asking questions, learning to love our neighbors, learning to love ourselves. And with intention, Debbie will place a pebble in the bowl. Our chalice is lit, and now Debbie places the pebble in the bowl of water, letting it ripple out beyond our knowing. And all are invited to do the same here at the fellowship or at home to mark a joy, sorrow, or any other feeling you have during the musical parts of our service.
Now it's time to sing, everybody. So please rise as you are willing and able to join us as we sing the hymn, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. It's number 361 in the gray hymnal, and Elena will accompany us. I now have a reading by Reverend Scott Taylor. It's called Waiting to be Remembered and Reclaimed. We come with our joy, incurable curiosity, and hunger for hope. But also we come with our broken hearts, our cracked confidence, our ruptured relationships, our loneliness that lingers just beneath the surface. And so we long for this to be a place of repair, a space of picking up the pieces and putting them back together. They say that worship is about praise, but it's also about listening and words that usher in the sacred, words that become the webbing, weaving again a path back to wisdom, back to forgotten worth, back to a place of peace too often buried beneath all the striving, worry, and wounds. And so today, may the sounds, songs, and speech circling in this space sweep you up like a stream whose currents long to carry you home. And may the common breath so sweetly shared between us remind us that loneliness eventually lifts, that we are tethered more tightly than it sometimes seems, that together our hearts can mend and our world can be woven anew. Yes, friends, Belonging is something we build, but it's also something always there, waiting to be remembered and reclaimed, waiting for us to come home. In our fellowship, we share so many things: time, effort, talent, spirit, and money. We share that with this fellowship and for the needs of the fellowship, but we also share with our greater community beyond these walls. You may contribute to the fellowship or to our social action offering recipient for September, which is Free Again Wildlife Rehabilitation. Information about the group is in your order of service in this morning's email. Checks should be made payable to CUF, and you can also donate online via PayPal. The link is in the chat and in your order of service. Use the check memo area or the note area in PayPal if you wish to specify a contribution to Free Again. Also, remember that your spare change makes a difference. All the coins collected during the offering are sent to the UUA Annual Program Fund, which provides important resources to UU congregations, including CUF. Please join me now in our unison offering reading printed in your order of service and on screen. Freely have we received of gifts that minister to our needs of body and spirit. Gladly we bring to our church and its wide concerns a portion of this bounty. Your contributions in all forms are gratefully received.
Out of the ruins and rubble, out of the smoke, out of our night of struggle, can we see a ray of hope, one pale thin ray, reaching for the day. We can build a beautiful city. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We can build a beautiful city, not a city of angels, but we can build a city of men. We may not reach the ending, but we can start. Slowly but truly mending, brick by brick, heart by heart. Now, maybe now, we start learning how we can build a beautiful city. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We can build a beautiful city. Not a city of angels, but we can build a city of man. When your trust is all but shattered, when your faith is all but killed, you can give up bitter and battered, or you can slowly start to build a beautiful city. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We can build a beautiful city. Not a city of angels, but finally a city of man. A city of man. A city of man.
Thank you. We now have an untitled reading by Penny Hackett Evans. Each of us brings a separate truth here. We bring the truth of our own life, our own story. We don't come as empty vessels, but as full people, each with our own story and our own truth. We seek to add to our truths and add to our stories. This room is rich with truth, rich with experiences. All manner of people are here, needy, joyful, frightened, anxious, bored. We all bring our truth with us. May we all recognize the truth and the story in our lives, in other lives than our own. May we hear and honor the truths that we all bring as we gather together. Together we have truths, together we have a story, together we have a community. I now invite Mallory Swafford up to deliver her message on what it means to belong.
Morning. It's really hard to follow up possums and barn owls, but I'll try. Okay. Today we're talking about belonging, and I want to share my lessons learned and ask how we expand a sense of belonging into our lives and the lives of others. How do we achieve belonging for ourselves? How do we extend belonging to others? How do we use belonging as a guiding light in a world where so many feel isolated? Shortly after I sat down to organize my thoughts on this topic, I heard a quote from Robin Wall-Kimmerer, the author of Braiding Sweetgrass. All flourishing is mutual. I want us all to sit with that statement throughout my talk this morning. Hold it lightly with you as I speak. All flourishing is mutual. As I thought about belonging and what I have to offer on the topic, I was able to isolate 4 big lessons in my journey to belonging. I would like to talk about these first. The real starting point for me and my personal journey was self-acceptance. I, like many others, have always struggled to feel as if I belong. I moved a lot as a child. I'm the daughter of a career military man, and my parents would say, when we settle in one place, you'll find your people. We settled in one place toward the end of elementary school, and I still had a hard time fitting in. In middle school, they told me I would find my people in high school. In high school, they told me I would find my people in college. I moved off to college determined to find my people, and I continued to struggle. As I became an adult, I felt the strain of isolation. I had no village. Each day was more exhausting than the last, and I sank deeper and deeper into a pool of responsibility. I didn't even flail as I sank. I just accepted that life is hard. It is what it is. I can't quite pinpoint the spark, the moment I decided to reach out for a lifeline. I think there was an innate knowing in the back of my mind, it doesn't have to be this way. It isn't supposed to be this way. I used to try to force myself into spaces that were clearly not meant for me. I stopped forcing and started looking inward. I started to determine the person I was and the person I wanted to be. I began to ask, what are my true values? Am I aligned with my true values? Are my actions aligned with my true values? Is this aligned for everything? Relationships, plans, goals, so many things started melting away. Aspects of my life that were not aligned with my true values collapsed with a deafening echo. My life became stripped of that which did not serve me. And during this time, I didn't feel like I belonged in a group, but I finally felt as if I belonged to myself. I started to form new relationships that felt aligned. But as we all know, relationships are hard. So came the next big lesson in my journey to belonging. In genuine relationships, people let you down and you let people down. Then you keep the door open anyway. My partner, Ben, was a great mentor in this lesson. Ben's experiences have always been fairly opposite to my own. While I'm not sure I can name a friend I've had for over 10 years, almost all of his friends are relationships he's had for more than 10 years, and many he's had since childhood. I remember fairly early in our relationship, a friend of ours started going through a hard time. They became kind of sour toward Ben, and they were fairly unpleasant to be around in general. I was ready to write them off entirely. I didn't understand why Ben would leave the door open for someone that was acting like that. And he kept saying things like, oh, they'll come around eventually. In the past, when relationships or friendships had soured, I walked away from those relationships and did not look back. I've always prided myself with having relatively strong boundaries. But then we discovered our friend was going through way more than we realized. And after a couple of years, they showed up in our life in a big and wonderful way. I was really stunned. I would not have ever imagined finding a deeper friendship through being at odds with another person for years at a time. But through this, I learned you do not form a true sense of belonging from skin deep relationships. A sense of belonging comes from seeing someone at their worst and going, you know what? I love you anyway. This is not to support enabling someone's problematic or hurtful behaviors. You have to have boundaries to help keep you in a safe environment. Like most things, it's a balancing act. But the act of leaving things open, of saying, hey, I know things aren't great right now, but the door is open when you're ready, leaves space for a deeper relationship with others than you had previously. It's also letting others down and showing back up ready to ask for forgiveness. This lesson goes both ways. It's letting others see you at your most vulnerable and allowing them to show up for you, which is honestly the hardest part about this lesson for me. You have to be able to meet people on a level that's not always pretty, not always pleasantries, not always super fun. And then you keep showing up. As my life began to stabilize, I started to feel more open to expanding my community. I have managed to gather the pieces of a really beautiful little life, and it was time to start welcoming more people into that life. I started to grow my circles. I started to put myself out there in a genuine way. And I discovered that growing my community took conscious and oftentimes uncomfortable growth. I started attending women's groups in the area, going to community meetings, frequenting community events, and talking to people I didn't know. We expanded our invitations for gatherings at our house to include more and more people. We expanded the Christmas card list to an almost unreasonable size. I brought small hostess gifts to every new house I was welcome to, and even to vendors I appreciated at the farmer's market. The most amazing things started happening. I started to rapidly find my people. So, lesson 3 is that my community was not going to magically show up. It was not a utopian group just sitting out there waiting for me to find it. I had to cultivate it with intention. This summer at a sunset concert, I started out alone. I laid my blanket out in the grass and sat down. A friend came and sat next to me, and then another and another. And I looked around and realized not only was I encircled by friends, but by acquaintances I hardly knew. I had finally become an anchor in my community in a small way, and the feeling that came with it left a lightness in my chest for weeks. It was then I realized that my journey to expand my community was truly working. The most recent lesson I've been given on my journey to belonging is that belonging is for everyone, even those we struggle with. And this one is very hard for me. In this lesson, I'm learning that when we flourish, when we find a sense of belonging, others sense it and they want it too. We do not expand our sense of belonging by excluding others. They're antithetical concepts. I have found myself offering to be the village for those I would not normally offer a place in my circle. People that I struggle to enjoy time with have an invitation to my home when their air conditioning goes out. A couple I disagree with on multiple fronts has a babysitter when they have no childcare. Those who have hurt me in the past have a seat at my table for now. While there are always actions that can estrange us from each other, I try to think back to my previous lesson. People will let you down, but you leave a door open in order to build a genuine relationship. In today's world, it is such a struggle. I battle with it constantly. Am I supposed to offer support for people that want harm to come to others? Do I allow those who are so hurt they hurt others in my circle? I don't think there's a cut and dry answer. I think it greatly depends on each situation, each individual, and your own capacity for grace in that moment. I feel my talking points are a little shorter on this lesson because I'm still actively engaging in and sitting with this concept at this point in my life. To recap, the 4 big lessons I've learned in my journey to belonging: I had to accept myself. I engaged in genuine relationships. I grew my community with intentional action. And community is for everyone, even those we struggle with. As with every time I speak up here, I stop and think to myself, what does what I am saying about my experiences matter to a wider audience? How do we use this to propel us into a more aligned future? To expand on this idea, maybe ask yourself, are there any lessons we've discussed this morning that you are feeling lacking or maybe a pull to? Do you feel a sense of self-belonging? Are your choices around those are your choices and those around you aligned with the you strive to be? Are you engaging in deep and meaningful relationships? Are you struggling to extend grace to those that have let you down? Are you too ashamed to ask for forgiveness when you've let others down? Are you intentionally widening your circle? Have you become a little stagnant recently and not been tending to your personal sense of community? Are you feeling very comfortable in your community, but forgetting to extend a line to others that may be lacking a sense of belonging? I would like us all to sit and lean into any question I just asked that called to you, or any questions or feelings you yourself have thought of during this time. So grab that question, if it's one that I just said or something you've been thinking about. Hold on to it for a moment. We're going to take a deep breath in and out. Do you have any feelings attached to this question? Lean into them for a moment. Approach it with curiosity. Take a deep breath in and out. Have you known that this thought has been on your mind for a while? Or is it a new idea you hadn't previously considered? Deep breath in. Deep breath out. Do you need to sit with this idea for a while? What would sitting with that idea with intention look like for you? Deep breath in and out. Are you ready to take action on this idea? What actions could you take this month to take an aligned action? A breath in and out. What actions could you take this week? In and out. Nicely done. I want us to sit with the phrase, all flourishing is mutual again. We cannot find belonging without others. I know that's not a popular concept in a culture that is hyper individualistic. Some believe you can achieve a sense of belonging by refusing to allow others to have it. Some enjoy weaponizing the cheap sense of community that is achieved from these actions by people who are unwilling, incapable, or ignorant of the work required to find true and lasting belonging. If I know one thing for certain, it is this. We do not gain a sense of belonging by forcing others into isolation, and we do not gain community by stripping others of theirs. We are communal beings. We need belonging. Sometimes it requires those around us that are flourishing to extend a lifeline to those of us that feel as if we do not belong. Sometimes it requires us to meaningfully expand our community with forethought and intention. Sometimes it requires us to extend grace to those around us. And sometimes we have to ask for grace to be extended to us. Sometimes it requires extra patience and personal growth to ask hard questions and be expansive in our circles anyways. No matter which way you look at it, it becomes clear that all flourishing is indeed mutual. Thank you.
Whoa, sorry, guys, I'm nervous. When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high, and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of the storm, there's a golden sky, and the sweet silver song of the lark. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, know your dreams be tossed
Thank you, TK. That totally touched my heart. I would like to thank everyone who made this service possible, which includes everyone here and on Zoom. Thanks to Beverly for sharing information on Free Again and all of her animals. Thanks to Mallory for her beautiful message. Thanks to our musician, TK. Thanks to Elena for accompanying us on our hymn. Thanks to Gilletta, our genius AV host. Thanks to Jerry and Linda, I believe, for greeting, and thanks to Alex and myself. Please rise now as you are willing and able, and hold hands or hold your palms out for our benediction. It's called It's Having Received Sanctuary by Reverend Scott Taylor.
Having received sanctuary for our heavy hearts, may we make shelter for those feeling alone.
Having been renewed in spirit, may we remind others why hope is always worth the risk.
Having returned to the truth of our interconnection, may we remember that injustice inflicted on one is injustice inflicted on all.
And having received the blessing of belonging, may we work to widen the circles that have kept others out for far too long. Blessed be, amen. Go in peace with love for justice. Woohoo!
Hey, get it, Debbie.